Hi, welcome to this video by Alcos Ventures. Today we're going to talk about national debt. We're also going to understand why this is important and whether you should care or not and how it directly impacts you. Now, if your question is, does national debt and personal debt differ in any way? Yes. Of course, the underlying principle is the same, but when it comes to the structure and the manner in which countries borrow money, it's very different from personal debt, even though the principle is the same. So let's understand some statistics. Now, the numbers I'm presenting to you are from Wikipedia, and if you're not very sure how big $1 trillion is, please go ahead and just type 1 and a couple of zeros next to it. And then when it gets big enough, that's a billion. When it gets really big enough, that's when you know it's a trillion. So the current national debt stands at 24.95 trillion. Intergovernment holdings are 5.9 trillion, and for a total national debt of 24.95 trillion, that's a lot. And at the end of 2019, the debt held by the public was around 79.2% of the entire GDP, and approximately 37% of the debt held by the public was owned by foreigners. Now, we're actually talking about the US national debt here, but these are big numbers. And if you just go back 10 years, you can see that in 2009 it was about 11 trillion, 10 was about 13 trillion, and in 2011 it was 14 trillion. And since then, just in a couple of years, we've nearly doubled our debt, especially if you look at 09 and 10 numbers. We have more than doubled our debt. And how does that happen? So let's actually look at a future projection. So by 2030, it is projected that the US federal government debt is set to go over $31.4 trillion. And that is equal to 98% of the GDP. That's the highest. And now you know this as well. Anytime you borrow money, you have to pay interest on that debt. And if you look at the interest payments that are being paid by the US government, it's actually 450 billion. Now, yes, it's fair enough that it's because of long-term interest rates, and because countries are borrowing that debt, there's more certainty, and so they get a better chance to negotiate that interest. But still, 450 billion a year just in the interest, and that's not even principal. That's a lot of money, and that money is the money paid by taxes. Of course, there's a variety of ways in which governments get money, but we'll actually look at that in this video. But before we jump to that, let's look at the projected interest payments. Now, within a decade, it is said that we will reach $1 trillion in debt. Now guys, if you're enjoying this video, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. And also, if you're getting any value out of this, please go ahead and share it with just one friend who you think this video can help, or at least give them a baseline understanding of the concept of national debt. Now, $1 trillion is a lot of money, and that's the projected interest payment within the decade. That's in the next 10 years, and this is just the interest payments on the current debt, and that's not even talking about the debt. It's just the interest that we're going to pay. So how does the government get money? What are the sources? So two primary sources. One is collecting taxes or revenue. Of course, that's from people, businesses, and variety of taxes that come in maybe every time you make a purchase, or whether you receive income from a salary, that goes directly to the government, or to a portion of that. And of course, by borrowing it, by selling Treasury securities, savings bonds, notes, Treasury bills. So you can actually invest in this and get a very fixed interest rate. Of course, it's going to be low compared to some other investments, but you can invest in these bonds that are issued by the government. And these bonds, the government does pay out. They have to pay out, because you can't, not pay on a bond. that's why it's considered very safe to invest in. But also, you might be better off, especially if you're looking for the highest interest rate, to invest in something else that gives you a better interest rate, but of course it's going to have some risk. So these statistics, now you can actually log into usa.gov/budget and get these statistics. So now that you know how government makes money, one is from revenue, of course, from taxes, people, businesses, and from borrowing, because they're selling these bonds to you and then you buy them for a period of time, and then the government pays you since you're buying them, because it pays you that interest, and that would be the investment earning that you would make. So now let's actually look at how the government gets money, and after that gets money, where does it go? So once again, from the same website, you can log in and get the same information yourself. So money goes primarily to three different things. One is Social Security, Medicare, and any mandatory spending by the law. Second, of course, is the previous amounts that we looked at, the 450 plus billion, and of course the projected $1 trillion in interest payments over the next decade. So that's the interest on the debt. That's the total the government owes on all past borrowing. And the third is any discretionary spending. Congress usually sets this annually for all programs and agencies. And these are three primary spends that the government spends money on. So you can have a look at this as well for a quick summary. So getting a little more into government spending, here are the 5 to 6 sectors. And you can see 2018 total US government spending. Now this is from Wikipedia. Data source would be Office of Management and Budget. 23% goes to healthcare, 12% to defense, 15% education, pensions, and everything else. And so you're getting a picture. But are we really at a point where we have to ask the question, should you care? And maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't, but let me run a few more things by you. So one thing is for sure, unlike any debt, this can't go on forever, because the more you borrow, the more you have to pay back, and the interest also accumulates over time. And if you don't clear out more than principal, then you're going to be paying that interest indefinitely, and this can't go on indefinitely, because as the population grows, as Social Security and Medicare, all that goes up, there's only going to be more borrowing and then more interest payments, and it's a big debt bubble. And there's got to be an end, right? So smaller countries can be bailed out by larger ones, but what about when countries get really big? Who's going to help the bigger countries? And there's no real answer, because national debt skyrockets during times of recession. We're seeing this during the 2008 crisis. We're seeing we're seeing the same kind of patterns during COVID-19, and we're seeing that whenever crises like this occur, then two things are for sure. The first one is that revenues go down, and the second one is that the spending goes up. And when that happens, especially revenues go down and spending going up at the same time, then you know that it's not a very good situation. And of course, the only way to put an end to this would be to clear off that debt or renegotiate the interest payments and somehow come up with a long-term plan to fix this. So if we're going to discuss this further, let's do that in the next video. Guys, if you watched this far, thank you very much. We started off the channel in May, and we've been growing strong since then, and I'd just really like to thank you for your effort and for you watching the videos and sharing them and liking them and commenting. And if you haven't done so, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Go ahead and share it with just one friend, because of course, like these videos take time to make, prepare, and a lot of research goes into shooting and planning and getting you the right and accurate data of every video. And we try as much as we can to get the most latest and accurate data, and also shoot them in a manner and make you learn them in the right manner. So go ahead and share this with one friend who you think this can help. Thank you very much. Hit the subscribe button and we'll discuss more in the next video.